looked at something that I thought was just fascinating is that profitability, because like Prime Day just really just kind of crushed me this year with everything that went on. I actually made more money in August than I did in July.
Are you frustrated with growth on Amazon? If you're not completely confident in your Amazon ad strategy or your brand growth strategy on Amazon, we should chat. Hey, what's up? I'm Brett Curry, CEO of OMG Commerce. We help 7, 8, and 9-figure brands scale on Amazon. Now, success on Amazon really comes down to 3 things. The first is visibility, and this is really made up of SEO and merchandising. SEO is really about getting your products to show up on the right digital shelves when people search for keywords related to your product. Merchandising is really about helping your products jump off the shelf so that people notice them. Number 2 is velocity, and this is largely driven by improving your overall organic rank and crafting a comprehensive Amazon ad strategy. And then number 3 is value creation. This is turning impressions and clicks and visits to your product detail page into paying customers. This is all about better copy, better images, better videos, better bullet points, better A+ content, and overcoming any hurdle that's keeping someone from buying your product. Now, as an agency, we've been doing this for 8+ years. We've been invited to the Amazon headquarters multiple times. I speak on stages about how to grow on Amazon. And we've condensed 8 years of Amazon knowledge into one simple, practical guide. So click here to get that guide, or maybe you'd like to work with the pros to diagnose what's wrong with Amazon for you, or just see what opportunities you might be missing. So click here to also request a free strategy session, and we can't wait to help you dominate on Amazon. Well, hello, and welcome to another edition of the E-Commerce Evolution Podcast. I'm your host, Brett Curry, CEO of OMG Commerce. And today we're going deep on Amazon. How is Amazon trending in 2025? We'll unpack a little bit of Prime Day from the context of what did we learn then that we can apply to Q4. Amazon has always been a wild ride, and this year is maybe wilder than most. And so we want to give you what you need to be able to crush holiday sales. And so my guest today is Brandon Fuhrmann, and he is the co-founder of Innovate. Used to be Amazon Innovate, if you've heard of that event or seen that event in the past. My buddy Sean Frank from The Ridge says it's the best Amazon show he attends. Brandon Young also confirms that. And so high praise from 2 powerhouse individuals in the D2C and Amazon space. And so going to talk about the show a little bit, but Brandon is also, he's been a top seller on Amazon for 12 years. So either a 7 or 8 figure seller essentially the whole time in an extremely competitive category, kitchenware, which most people have just dropped out of that category. It's just deeming it too hard. And so he's got lots of wisdom, excited to unpack this one. With that, Brandon, welcome to the show, man. And how's it going?
It's going good. Good to be here. You mentioned 12 years. It seems like it's like 100 years in Amazon years, but yeah.
Yeah, totally. I think we can definitely count digital marketing or e-commerce or Amazon years. They should feel like dog years or be calculated the same way because yeah, if you've been doing this for longer than 3 or 4 years, you're sort of a veteran, right? And
pretty much.
So you've been doing it for 12. Dang,
I can't even believe it myself.
You know the game. Yeah, for sure. And so, we love the Amazon game. We built a full service Amazon department inside of OMG, starting back in 2016. And so kind of fell in love with Amazon. Love hate though, right? Like it's such an opportunity. Mm-hmm. There's such madness there as well. And we'll get into things like fees and how those are going to continue to go up in Q4 and talk about some weirdness around Prime Day and what we can expect from that. But obviously with Amazon at 50% of all e-commerce and growing, can't ignore it. Got to have a good strategy there, good tactics, good execution plan. And so we'll dive in. But I guess let's start with Prime Day because it's always a bit of a bellwether, right, of what is holiday going to look like. And of course, we'll have the fall Prime Day probably. And I'm curious have you heard anything about the fall Prime Day as in terms of when that's going to be or what that's going to look like this year?
I've heard a couple of rumors, but I don't really want to say because I'll say it, and then by the time this comes out, they'll have announced it, and I'll be dead wrong. So,
but something is
sometime
coming
in
there.
October-ish.
October-ish, I think is a great way to put it. But even the early Prime Day, the July Prime Day, the OG Prime Day, it's somewhat of a bellwether for holiday. And so let's talk about that a little bit. It was a 4-day event for the first time. Last year was a 2-day event. It's been a 1-day event in the past. Because it was an extended event, you didn't have the same urgency as years past. Day 1 and day 2 this year, globally, we're down 40% in sales. We saw that across a lot of our clients. We decided, hey, if we're going to do a year-over-year comparison, we need to look at the 2 days of Prime Day plus the 2 days after, right? Because you can't compare 4 days of sales to 2 days of sales. That's an unfair comparison. But overall, it was a decent Prime Day. A lot of our clients were up. It didn't feel quite the same as normal. And I know you kind of echoed that as well, that it was not the biggest Prime Day you've had. And so unpack that a little bit. What was Prime Day like in general? And then where did you see the biggest drop off or the biggest change related to Prime Day?
So I've been doing Prime Day for a long time. I sell kitchenware, and kitchenware is usually great on Prime Day because I feel like there's a lot of people who are just like, I want to buy something, but I don't really know what it is. But I know I want something because there's deals. And then like kitchenware kind of slots into that perfectly because it's like everyone could always use something for their kitchen. So I feel like I've always benefited in years past from that mindset and from the urgency that takes place during the 2-day Prime Day. I've woken up, one of the first years of Prime Day, I woke up at like 5:00 in the morning, and like this is before they had cookies or anything. And I went to like Amazon.com, and my product was literally sitting on the front page of Amazon.com. And I sold out of every unit I had by 6 a.m. Eastern time, not even PST.
Wow.
Like I've been through
my part of the country aren't even awake yet.
Yeah.
And you're done.
I've been through a lot with that. And, I've seen that happen in years past. And, a couple of things definitely affect that. One, obviously the 4-day Prime Day led to a lot less urgency. When you have that kind of, people were just kind of taking their time, waiting for deals, kind of thinking about it, not sure what they wanted. And it really changed the products that sold compared to years past, right? When you had that urgency, it kind of put a little pressure on there. The other thing that changed is, if you were running a Prime Day deal, like a lightning deal, essentially, you used to be able to adjust the quantity on that, right? So you could kind of sit there and kind of create a full scarcity as the deal was running, and people would just start running away with it because they thought it was like 90%. You can't do that anymore. So a lot of that urgency was also taken away, right?
Does that mean, and so since that went away, does Amazon just show all of your inventory, or do they just take that?
You can either choose a finite
away?
amount or use all your inventory, right? All your inventory basically means that there's not going to be any bar at all, right? So there's not even a little bit of scarcity. And the finite amount is like, you could sell out immediately and then be done, or you could not do too much and then be at 1% for the entire day and look like you have the worst product that no one's interested in, right? So it's a really fine line with how you set that and how you prepare for that. So I think that with that, a lot of that kind of changed how people responded to Prime Day and how products were sold during Prime Day.
I totally agree with that. And I'll just a quick note on the urgency piece. I know you're into events, and we'll talk about Innovate in a little bit. But we see like small events, and you think through like webinars and things like that, and you always want to make it like where this is super easy to say yes to, where if I look at it, I'm like, I don't really have to think about it. I want to say yes to this, but also where there's not enough time for you to be comfortable coming back to it. Right. And I think that's potentially the chord that was not struck with a 4-day Prime Day, where it's like, okay, fairly easy to say yes to this deal. It's a pretty good deal, but I've got time. And what if I find something better?
Right.
And what if I want to buy?
There was a lot of like
just enough hesitation. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And
so then I'll be really curious to see, will Amazon shift this next year? What will they do for fall? Because I think fall was like Prime Week last week or something like that, or last year. And so I'd be really, really curious to see what they do next.
The other thing that changed too was how they were, calculating discounts and factoring them in, and they were using, coupons and last 30-day prices, and they made it that it was an extremely complicated number to fill out. And also because of when Prime Day fell, those numbers reset on Prime Day. So right? So like it was kind of crazy because like, if you have a certain price within the 30 days, that, but it wasn't 30 days before, you might get flagged and your deal might not be running on Prime Day, right? So there was a lot of like weirdness where it was like, I don't even understand how they calculated it. I'm sure, I feel like people at Amazon don't even know how they calculated it. But some of the prices for my products were like so bizarrely low that I couldn't really do anything, or so bizarrely high that it was like, this isn't really a deal, but like that's what they wanted. So like, I feel like that was a really kind of interesting, wrinkle in it as well.
And again, that's an area where you don't have a ton of control over that, right? Where Amazon says this is the base price. I guess you have control over your discount, but do you have to set the discount before you see what they're gonna approve as like the base price?
Yeah, I mean, you set the discount and then they'll come back and just like flag it and not let the discount run. Depending on, there's like 15 different discounts you could run. You could use the Prime exclusive discount or whatever they're calling it now. I think they changed the name again. But all those different discounts, and then they don't tell you exactly what's running or not until the system like automatically flags it for whatever reason. But they usually do that on like Mondays or so. And then, we were already kind of going by then. So it's like, yeah, it's tough to figure that out and tough to figure out what's working and what's not. So yeah.
Got it. I know. And so related to that, you were telling me kind of offline, lightning deals, those were impacted, right? And that's, I know, a huge part of this. That's kind of you sold out so early in years past. But how have lightning deals changed, and any additional points to add to that?
Yeah. So in addition to like how they calculate quantity, it seemed like the way they were being displayed on the front end also kind of was similar to how Prime exclusive discounts were being displayed. It didn't seem like there was really much additional marketing being done to them. They kind of got lost in the shuffle. That seemed kind of the same thing. And to me, it feels like I wasted, $1,000 a deal compared to years past.
Because you got to pay for that deal regardless of how much you sell.
That's right.
You got to pay to be.
Yeah,
in it.
Exactly. And
and do your discounts.
A year ago prior, I sold 5,000 units of one of my products where it was like, heck, I would take that chance every day. Right. So like, it was like a no brainer to me, but like it just, nothing really took off. Nothing really happened. So it just seemed like it was just had a different level of marketing than what maybe they had done in the past.
And so you think, the paid $1,000 to get the lightning deal. Yeah. This year you both had the quantity issue, how many units you consider are eligible for it. You have the pricing issue, so maybe it ends up not looking like as much of a deal, and then they're maybe not promoting it as well either. Do you think that just applied to potentially your deal or your category, or did it seem like globally lightning deals just didn't get the same kind of traction?
It seemed globally, because I heard this from a lot of sellers, and I think, for some, at least the 4 days may have played an aspect to it, right? Again, if there was no scarcity as well, then like people just, don't, and they literally removed every possibility of scarcity from Prime Day, right? So
yeah, which just seems really silly to me. Like Amazon is smart, right? Like they're brilliant retailers. Like they're not a better retailer on the planet except for maybe Walmart or something. But it seems like they maybe missed it. So here's an important question. Based on that information, what are you going to do differently in Q4? What are you potentially going to do differently next Prime Day? That's a long ways away. Things could shift again. They will shift, I'm sure. But what lessons are you taking from this you're applying to holiday?
Yeah, well, so there's two. First of all, we have the fall Prime Day, right? And that's the next thing to kind of get ready for. So the lessons that I'm taking. So first of all, I've looked at something that I thought was just fascinating, is that profitability, because like Prime Day just really just kind of crushed me this year with everything that went on. I actually made more money in August than I did in July, which shouldn't happen.
That should not happen.
But it did. So I think with the fall Prime Day, there's a couple of factors that definitely need to take into consideration. So first of all, is the storage fees are already in effect, right? So you have the Q4 storage fees, which are like 4x normal storage fees, right? And selling in kitchenware, I'm selling items where I sell a lot of items that, are at a relatively low price. If you're selling a $400 item, maybe you don't care that much about Q4 storage fees, but for me, that's a huge deal. Right. So it's very hard to bring in extra inventory for that Prime Day. So, for me,
that's another way it's going to chip away at your profits if you get that quantity wrong.
Yeah, exactly. So to me, I think I'm bringing in the inventory I want for Q4. I always overestimate, especially with Chinese New Year coming in shortly thereafter. It's okay for me to have a couple extra months of inventory. So if I have stuff and, I know that I've got a good amount in FBA, and I know the pricing is good, those are the products I'm probably going to be discounting, knowing I can probably get the rest of the inventory in time for Black Friday, Cyber Monday. So that's kind of where I'm going to probably start looking at discounts is actually discounting products that I have a good amount of inventory and that I could actually use to reduce storage fees leading into Q4. So that's definitely the first way I'm probably looking at it. The second is like really sitting down and drilling down and understanding, how they're going to be marketing each of the different deals and coupons and discounts, because there was so many different ones going on that it was like kind of difficult to really understanding and kind of get confused by. So I'm going to Accelerate in a couple weeks, which is a great conference, but
Great show.
great. It's amazing.
Yep, on Seattle, love it.
But that's one of the things I really want to discuss with the people there is try to understand, how they're promoting these and how they're viewing each of these different kinds of deals. Because from our end, we kind of get lost in the shuffle.
Yeah, totally makes sense. Are you still going to lean into the same kind of lightning deals, or do you think your deal strategy might shift? It might
shift. I think it's going to be a game time decision, but it's definitely going to shift. As far as right now, it's going to shift away quite a bit. I still might run one or two, but I'll probably just go with like the Prime exclusive discounts and maybe a couple of other things and call it a day. People have been talking against lightning deals for years and how they don't work for them, but they'd always worked for me until now. So I believe in like kind of like verifying with my own data instead of trusting random people that I know or friends or whatever, because everyone's different, every category is different. But yeah, I'm going to definitely move away from that, for the most part, but keep probably a couple just in case. I'm kind of viewing it as a bellwether for Black Friday, Cyber Monday, which is obviously going to be a lot more sales, right? And it's kind of like, they've got between July and October, they've got 3 months to get things together, figure out what they want to do. But I can kind of test some things and see how they're going to work maybe for Black Friday, Cyber Monday, and kind of, use that as like to figure out how I'm going to plan for that instead of just, not testing anything. So probably run a little bit of everything.
Totally.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think that's a real advantage of the October Prime days. Run some tests, experiment a little bit, and then that's going to maybe inform your Cyber 5 strategy even more than
T12 or whatever it was. Yeah, last year.
What's that?
It was like T12 last year, right? Like it was.
It was. Yeah. Yeah, totally. So we'll see. I mean, that's kind of the trend, and we saw 4-day Prime Day this year, so probably won't see the Cyber 5 or the Turkey 5 or whatever.
This year, maybe
T15.
Yeah, I mean, like I don't know how more you can expand it. Yeah,
keep going. Exactly. Any call outs like on the way you guys approached ads during Prime Day, or any shifts you expect this year, or what you're hearing from your community? I know, my ads team, they're very active, and obviously CPCs, rise 20-30% kind of thing on the category during these prime windows, and usually worth it because conversion rate goes up in step with that, or conversion rate goes up more. But any changes for you on your ad strategy? Anything?
Not really.
Anything you're expecting there?
The only thing that we do differently is that we always will try to like start increasing it leading up to Prime Day to kind of like really get a foothold and start preparing and kind of like just like start increasing it and getting maybe some little bit of rankings here or there, because sometimes especially in July, like sales are not at their peak, whereas like those 2 days can be quite a bit of extra sales and get extra ranking that could last for a month or so. So yeah, we'll do some, extra promotion on the ads leading up to it. But other than that, I don't think there's anything we're planning on changing. But, again, it's October's a ways away at this point,
Yeah. Although we'll be here before we know it for sure. Let's kind of double click a little bit on, you talked about storage fees and other fees and stuff. Can you talk about and in those fees, some of those fees are going up 4x, right, for Q4. Can you talk about like all the fees and costs that you're considering and what's shifting, and then what you're doing about it?
So there's so many different fees at this point, right? When I first started, there was like, a couple fees and you just had to kind of like look at them. Now there's, when I look at my seller board report, there's, 15, 20 different fees. And you can't even really trace back half of them. Like your transaction report, you can barely see what they're for. So it's really important to really manage every fee as best possible. It's like death by a thousand cuts, right? And something that I always like, want to impress on people is that like, if you're making, I'm just using a number, $100 a day, and then there's like a $5 fee, you might be like, oh, $5 isn't that much, but right, that's 5% of your total profit, right? Like your profit has gone down considerably, right? Based on something that's relatively small, and you get a bunch of those, and suddenly $100 turns into $73 or $52 or whatever that number is, right?
And that's maybe most of your margin,
right? Exactly,
or all of it,
right? And so some of what I've been doing too is like kind of digging back and like looking at each month and being like, okay, what's going on? What can we change? Where did we lose? What's happening here, right? And trying to see like if there's any bleeding that we can cut, anything that we can change, right? And trying to factor in all those ghost fees into your profitability of each product. And like none of the profitability softwares really do this perfectly because there's a lot of like, global fees and things that they, might factor in globally, but not to each product. But really trying to figure out like, okay, is this product really profitable? Like, or is it just like kind of ghost profitable because like, I'm getting charged, this much in storage fees, but this much at, AWD for this. And, we've paid this extra for whatever it is. Like there's so many different things that it can be that, really trying to make sure that like I understand like where the money's actually coming from and like kind of building in extra margin almost in a way to take care of that. Cause I know I also am not going to be perfect at calculating that. So like,
Right.
if I want, I don't know, 15% margin, then I should really aim for 17, right?
Yeah. To give yourself a little bit of buffer because you may not have calculated the fees correctly. There may be some extra fees that come in, things like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So a couple things to note there. So you mentioned like none of the softwares calculated perfectly. They're looking maybe at global fees and not each individual SKUs fees or ASINs fees. Any recommendations there though? Or are there any software tools that you do recommend, or are you mostly doing this by hand with spreadsheets and digging into Seller Central?
Yeah. So I use Sellerboard, which gets me like 90% of the way there. And they tend to report the fees as far as I can tell. I mean, there's so many, I might be missing one and I probably would never know. But it seems like they're reporting all the fees in their back end. But again, some of them are globally. So I'll kind of look in and kind of like look at, let's say, long-term storage fees and look at everything that I might be, charged as a fee and kind of making sure that's being broken down properly and being added to like the bottom line for each product, right, as well. So,
got it.
So, there's always a couple that don't really get moved in. Like AWD fees, for example, is a really good one that doesn't really get factored in properly in there, right? So if I'm paying for storage there, I'm not paying FBA storage, but I'm still paying, a decent amount in storage as well.
Hey everyone, mark your calendars for Grow New York City, taking place September 25th and 26th in Midtown Manhattan. This is a gathering of 800 e-commerce brands over 2 days, learning about what's working, what's not, and what's transforming our industry with heavy emphasis on AI. You'll get to learn from and meet brands like Dr. Squatch, True Classic, Liquid IV, Pretty Litter, FabFit Fun, and many, many others. The best part is, if you're with a retail brand, you can get a ticket for free. That's right. If you're with a retail brand, your ticket is 100% free. So check it out. The tickets are going quickly at joingrow.com. Again, that's joingrow.com. Got it. And so then what are the levers that you can pull to improve profitability? I know you can look at that and then raise prices, and that's probably the clearest, simplest thing to do. But that can impact velocity and sales and conversion rate, things like that. But what are you changing based on this data? And then if you've got any specific wins that you've seen lately, and you can speak in generalities, that'd be great.
Yeah. So there's a bunch of different ways. Every fee is a lever you can pull, right, to improve profitability, right? So you could store less inventory and kind of, not keep as much. That's definitely a lever, right? That'll definitely move the needle. Probably the biggest is probably
and with that, are you just looking then for, hey, these are the ASINs or these are the SKUs that have just got too much inventory in, and so you're looking at velocity and stuff and running those calculations, and maybe your software helps with that.
Yeah, for sure. Trying to just get better at that, right? That's certainly a way, right? I mean, if you're paying, I don't know, let's just say, $1,000 a month in storage fees, right? If you can get 10% better, maybe you'll be paying $900 a month, and that's $1,000 a year that you're going to save, right? So even just like little wins like that, like 10% better at something, can really yield, big results over the long term, right?
Totally.
So, it used to be that you could just kind of like be pretty good at Amazon and figuring out what you're doing, but now you got to be like really digging in and really like every little bit counts, and you try not to make like one wrong move, right? So that's one thing. Another thing is, I use AWD quite a bit, right? Some people will send their inventory directly into FBA, but then you've got to pay the inbound placement fees, and you're paying those storage fees on that. If you're sending it into AWD, they will drip in that inventory. So you might end up saving significantly there on FBA fees, right? And even if you're storing it at 3PL, you'll still have to pay those placement fees unless you're shipping it to 5 locations, which is kind of crazy, right? So there's like different ways to work with inventory like that. That'll definitely help yield results. So I've definitely done some work there and kind of repositioning how I do some of that. The biggest is probably ad spend, though. Like really, realistically, like that's the biggest lever outside of price or anything like that. Or so that's definitely something I've worked to like kind of cut down a bit.
Totally. Where are you paying too much?
Exactly.
Where do you have wasted ad spend? What's not leading to either overall lift or direct conversions? And that is a look. I'm a huge ad fan. I think it drives velocity, drives rankings. You almost can't succeed, depending on the category. Almost can't succeed without it on Amazon. But man, is it an area for waste as well. So that's definitely a spot you got to be looking at and watching closely, especially in Q4.
Exactly. And I've went through my tacos, and and it was just like, okay, my total ACOS, like how much I'm spending per dollar, and I was just like, okay, I've got to cut this down a bit. I have to. Like, I'm sorry. Right. So I cut each one a little bit, and like I just I didn't sell as much, but I got more profitable, and that's okay. Right. So. Right, little wins like that.
It's not about top lines, about how much you can keep, and so you've got to maximize profits for sure.
So that's definitely another thing I've done. And then another thing that's a couple of things that are kind of underrated is one, obviously, if you've never like audited your packaging, is trying to make sure that you fit within Amazon's guidelines. That like if they say that they charge $4.83 for something that's this size, don't be like a tenth of an inch over it, because you're going to pay the next level if you can get that down. Even if the packaging costs more, even if they got to pack it tighter, even if you got to vacuum seal it, whatever it is, like that's going to save you significant money on each one. So that's definitely a big piece there. Another one is just really updating your images and making them look nicer. Right? Like just, trying to improve conversion rate, right? If you're converting better, your ads are going to cost less. You can maybe charge more money. Right? So like, probably every 2 years, it seems like I go back to the well and completely redo my entire lineup, like little by little. Technologies change, graphics designers change, and you can kind of like, eke out some pretty decent success that way. And you'll be surprised sometimes how much a product may take off by a new main image.
Yeah, it's such an interesting point, and it really is looking at all the component parts of success on Amazon, and even looking at if I can get 1% better in some of these areas, or 10% better maybe in some of these areas, those do stack.
Yep.
And it's one of those things where, if you find, let's call it a 10% improvement in a handful of key areas, that may end up being a 30% lift, a 40% lift in overall performance or overall profits. And so, you've got to look at that. And we can't just rely on Q4 conversion rates lifting, rising all ships, and we benefit from that. It's going to happen, but what can you do to create outsized gains there?
Exactly.
And so even simple things like images, a buddy of mine always talked about, hey, I want to craft my images on my ASIN so that if that's all someone saw, so remove the copy, remove the, everything else, all they saw was the images and the videos, that'd be enough for them to convert. And if you can do that, then your listing is in a pretty good spot. If you can't, upgrade those images and look for improvements there.
That's a great point. That's a really good idea for sure.
Cool. And then I know a few other things you kind of mentioned when we were prepping is removal fees, reimbursement fees being reduced, things like that. And any call outs there on some of those fees?
I mean, nothing I can really say to kind of help with that. I mean, obviously the reimbursement portal, you can kind of update your prices and try to get a better price and get more money returned to you, but there's not really anything you can do about that. The other fee is the returns, right? Is if you can do anything to cut down on your return rate as well. Right. So like I always will take my my reviews and like return reasons and put them into ChatGPT and kind of be like, summarize this, what should I do? Right. And kind of like, try to figure out if there's anything that like patterns that might be missing or anything that I could change that might help, reduce return rate. So it's like
super smart.
Yeah. So it was funny. Someone had said like put into ChatGPT and ask them tell me things about myself that I don't know or what I should be doing with myself or something like that. And it gave me this whole thing. And it was like, and by the way, you should upgrade the metal in your product. People are complaining. Do it already or something. And it was like,
interesting.
Yeah.
Wow.
And I was like, wow, that's some tough love. Yeah.
It is, but it's one of those things where, the AI is just looking at the data and giving you recommendations based on the data. It's maybe saying things that a human might not say.
Exactly,
right?
Yeah.
And so really valuable there. And so, yeah, you got to look at that feedback. And again, that's another piece is like, you've got this amazing feedback loop if you close the loop. If not, it's just feedback that's floating around and you do nothing with it. So you got to take that, apply that to changes and improvements in the product. And so, yeah, I mean, reducing the return rate makes such a difference in so many ways. You got extra fees there, you got shipping costs, things like that. If your delivery rate is too high, that impacts ranking and a number of other things. So yeah, get on that. That's definitely time well spent. Want to transition to a couple other really key points. I know we talked about offline, the competitive landscape is shifting with Chinese sellers getting better at quality listings and things. We talked a little bit about AI and some of the changes there, so I want to get into that too. But let's talk about the competitive landscape and particularly Chinese sellers. They seem to have upped their game. What can you tell us about that?
Yeah, I mean, they're using the same AI tools that we're all using. So suddenly these, the listings have much better English on them, have much better English copy on the product images. The images are looking nicer. Right. So a lot of the, branding advantages and, language advantages that I think US sellers had or English based sellers had have kind of gone away. And it's kind of a much more level playing field in that regard. Right. And a lot of times they're able to price products cheaper and get better deals on them. Right. So it's become a really much more difficult landscape in that regard, I think, especially in my category, which is really just a tough one for that.
It used to be mostly a price issue where Chinese sellers would come and just undercut everybody else, but it looked a little janky and then the listings were not great and stuff like that. Now that's improving. Now we got a real problem here with lower prices and comparable listings. So what are you doing to combat that? Any recommendations or any insights there?
Like I said, I redo my main images and really I say every 2 years or so, I bring everything down to the studs basically and start over again and kind of redo the best I can, right? Like, whatever your listing was, in 2023 is not necessarily going to convert the same way in 2025. The competition is different. The pricing is different, right? And so I feel like every 2 years or so, I'm kind of like really restarting again and like looking for what my competitive advantages are and what I can promote, what I can press, what I can charge. Right. And it changes. So that's really all I can do is really try to push those levers and kind of like make that work.
Yeah. And I mean, that's really the game forever, isn't it? Mm-hmm. Where we're looking for the next innovation, the next product enhancement, the next optimization, meaning better merchandising, better images, things like that. And how can we stay ahead of the competition? Because certainly if you make those changes and they work, your competition is going to copy you, right? And then you have to be looking for the next thing. And feels exhausting, seems exhausting, but that's just the game. That's the retail game. That's the Amazon game for sure. And the speed is pretty quick there, but got to be reinventing, got to be optimizing on the ongoing. And so makes a ton of sense there. What about AI and what are you doing specifically using AI to give yourself an advantage?
So I guess a couple of things I've been doing is I've been playing with AI, like I just mentioned, in terms of analyzing large bits of data. That's definitely been, helpful. I'll take it and I'll compare, SQP reports over different periods and kind of like try to gather, where maybe I've increased, maybe I've decreased, maybe I'm missing something there.
SQP reports for those that don't know?
The search query performance reports in brand analytics, I guess, within Seller Central, yeah. And that will show you, what keywords you're ranking for and what keywords you're actually making actual sales for. It's really the best place to find that, right? But it's easy to kind of miss something in that report if you're comparing a lot of different time periods, right? Or just different time periods in general, where it's kind of tough to like see all that data side by side. Right. So, I will, kind of go in sometimes and, kind of compare several of those and have it put together reports for me where it's like, okay, I noticed in, January you sold, 32 items on this term, but now you've sold 8. And then you go, okay, well, that's a problem. I got to fix that. Right.
It's a problem.
Right. So,
totally.
Right. So like being able to actually
an
segment
ad issue, it's a ranking issue. It's some kind of issue there.
Yeah. But being able to segment exactly what's going on, which keywords are actually the problem, right, is huge. So I've definitely been using it for that. I've also been using it to iterate on images. So I think I was telling you before about this nano banana or whatever. I hope I'm not even saying it correctly.
Yeah, Gemini from Google.
But it's been really great to kind of play around with images and, telling it to make boxes or text or whatever. And that's a really great way. To me, it seems like it gets like, 85% of the way there, 90%. And then I can send it to a graphic designer and be like, just make this good. Right. Right. And then, but like I've done most of the work already. So it's a lot less work for them and I can kind of get it to where I want.
And way easier than you like trying to sketch it out or, using, Google Docs or something to, annotate something. You can create it using Gemini and now you're much closer in your designer.
Exactly. Exactly. So that's definitely a big thing that I've been doing. And then also sometimes like, when it comes to like writing text with keywords in them, AI has been pretty good at like kind of making it look nicer and not look as keyword stuffed as it might be. Right.
Yeah. And curious, what are you using there? Are you using ChatGPT, using Claude, using something else?
Pretty much just ChatGPT.
Yeah. I think all the tools have their benefits and as an agency, we're probably using ChatGPT the most for a lot of things. Yep. But I do love Gemini for research, like as we're pitching a new deal or I'm researching a new category or whatever. Or if I really am leaning into something search-based a lot, I'll use Gemini. And then for me, anything that's copy-based, so like all the copy that I pull in from like show notes and stuff for the pod, I think Claude is the best, but there's reasons to use all of them. So just curious what you were leaning into there.
Yeah.
So what about the impact of Rufus? So now looking at kind of the AI that Amazon is using, what impact have you seen? What are you shifting in terms of strategy or tactics because of Rufus, if anything?
So I'm not really shifting any strategies per se. I guess the only thing I would say is, Rufus makes suggestions like, questions or data that it's kind of, do you want to know if this is cotton for a t-shirt or something, right? So I'll just make sure that my backend is filled with answers to those questions that maybe will address those questions. So I know that they're asking them, especially if they're on competitors' listings where I can see what questions are asking about them, then maybe I want to make sure they're asking them about me because maybe there's some kind of like disconnect in how it's interpreting the data. But other than that, like I haven't really changed that much. I don't see a ton of what, of what customers are doing with it. But yeah, I mean, I'm sure it's coming, but like it's kind of tough to reconcile that with like the standard search, right? And then like how to do that.
Yeah, it makes sense. How are you finding? Are you just visiting your listing, visiting your competitors' listings, playing with Rufus, seeing what the questions are and what it's surfacing, and then making adjustments there? Are there any tools you're using? Any specific recommendations there?
Yeah, so there was what was the tool's name? I completely forgot the tool. We talked about it last time.
Me later. We'll put it in the show notes.
Yeah. There's a tool that a seller released that I thought was really cool that would actually extract all the Rufus questions in one place for you. I don't remember what it's called, but I will find it. And I would like to use it. I'd like to say I have used it, but I haven't yet. But yeah, it seems like a really great opportunity to kind of get those all really quickly and being able to kind of address those as best you can.
Yeah, cool. But I think it also makes sense. Like something you should be doing anyway is shopping your own listings and looking at your competitor listings and seeing what's surfaced from Rufus there, and then making adjustments accordingly. So makes a lot of sense. Anything else? I want to make sure we talk about Innovate, which is an amazing show in New York City coming up here quickly. Anything else you would note in terms of what's shifting, what's changing, and what you're doing to prep for Q4?
Yeah, I think the only other thing that I kind of haven't mentioned is, I mentioned some of the inventory strategy, but I think really looking at AWD, I know it did not go so well last Q4, but I feel like they'll probably do a lot better this Q4 and kind of making sure I've got a good amount of inventory with them because it's going to make it easier to get things into Amazon when things might be tight, especially during like the middle.
Can you maybe just explain? I think probably most people are familiar with that, but how does that work, and how and when are you using it?
Yeah, so it's basically like a warehouse. They call FBA like a fulfillment center, right? So this is a more of a warehouse, right? So you can use this to ship to pretty much anywhere, like case packs. You're not going to ship individual units, right? But they make it so that you can ship into Amazon relatively affordably. You don't have to pay inbound placement fees. You just have to pay, I think it's $1.70 a box plus whatever the shipping charge is. Right. So it actually ends up being relatively economical to kind of, book those into Amazon. And then Amazon will also like have it on auto replenishment. So it'll actually drip in, as it sees fit too. So, for me, most of the year, it makes it really easy if I have stuff in AWD where I don't have to think about inventory planning as much because I know the inventory is kind of dripping in. Maybe I'll think about it from an ordering perspective, but not like a what's in FBA perspective. But in Q4, I've managed it, definitely a lot more head on because, moments can change, thousands of units. Right. But when it comes to booking appointments and getting a truck, you might not be able to get that truck in Q4 and AWD will just like seamlessly send it. I'm not saying it's going to be perfect. I'm not saying it's going to be great necessarily. But it's another tool, where you can get your inventory in that might beat a truck, potentially as well.
Great. Totally makes sense. Love that. Well, tell us about Innovate. Like I said, some trusted friends of mine, some leading influencers in the space say Innovate's one of the best. I'm speaking there this year. I'm really stoked about that. Can't wait to hang in New York with you and your team. But tell us about Innovate. Why is it so special? What's going down this year? Why should top sellers plan to attend?
Yeah, so this is our 7th year, which is, I can't even believe I'm saying it. What makes our show special, I guess, is a couple things. Is one, first of all, the show started completely organically. It started up as a meetup, but 7 or 8 years ago, for people just trying to learn how to sell online. And I was one of them. My partner, Jared, started it and I started running it with him. And then at some point it just kept growing and growing and growing in New York City. And we decided to put on a conference and we had like a little basement for like 100 people and, cut to today. This is our 7th one and we're going to have over 700 people this year. And it's just grown to be this like massive event. Something that I think really sets us apart is a lot of these, shows or events are put on by either like event companies or service providers or people who just like don't really know who they want to get to speak at the event. Where for us, we know we have a lot of friends, we have a lot of connections, and we're able to get really the people that we want to see speak, and get them to talk about the things we want to see them talk about. Right. So like we're all sellers and we're just like, hey, we're interested in TikTok. Great. Let's get someone to talk about TikTok. We're interested in, branding. Great. We'll get someone to talk about branding, right? Whatever we're interested in, whatever the hot topic is to us, we're going to get the experts to come talk about that. And we're going to get mostly actual operators, and not as much service providers, to talk. People are actually doing it themselves, running these businesses. We'll tell you about like what they're doing specifically. And
yeah,
no, I'll say, and we get, all different kinds, right? So, some people will get the, aspirational guys, who are doing, $1 billion, and we've got a couple of those. But then some of the people doing, 5 to 10 million are really in the weeds and they've got great things to offer too. So we try to get a really good mix of platforms and people that are really doing different things just exceptionally well and getting them to talk and share their secrets where they may not normally do so.
Yeah, you can generally tell an event that is run by just an event company where their primary goal is how do we profit from this event. And obviously, if you run an event, you want to turn a profit. But
I wish that was my primary goal. Yeah.
What's that?
I wish that was my primary goal. Yeah.
Yeah. But for you guys, it's like, what do I want to learn?
Yeah.
And what is going to give me an edge in the coming months and coming year for my brand? And so this is put on by sellers, run by sellers, curated by sellers. And these are just hot topics, right? And even the occasional service provider like myself, when we come in, it's still like, hey, this is what sellers want to know. And I'm still in the weeds on a lot of things, so can provide those insights. But yeah, it's received top marks from so many people that I trust that I think you got to make it a must attend event. And also the venue is cool, right? Like I love New York City, of course. Yeah. You guys are on one of the piers, Pier 67 or
Pier
something
60,
like that.
Yeah. Yeah, it's
Pier 60,
it's amazing venue. It's right on the water. and it overlooks the Hudson River. And last year we were able to open the windows and just get this beautiful breeze coming in. It was just really spectacular. The food is great. Like, we've done this for 7 years. This is the first time we were doing a venue 3 years in a row because we just like loved it so much that it was like, we gotta keep doing this here. So it's a great venue. And, something else too for us is like, the timing is important, right? It's just before Q4, where there's still time to make changes you might need to get involved, to get things together. Right? Like, if it was a little bit later, could be problematic, or earlier, maybe it won't be the most updated, advanced content, but this is like just before Q4 hits. So you got time to really, get things together and have a perfect Q4.
So the timing is strategic. Take advantage of it. Brandon, where can people find out more and where can they register?
Yeah. So it's, you can register at innovate.show. That's our website. And you can see all of our speakers that we have there. Including, of course, Ezra Firestone, who's amazing, who I'm super excited for, as well as.
And I think I made that connection.
Yes,
right? I don't want to take too much credit. Yes,
absolutely,
and dude. He's legendary. He's so good. I know you know that. But for those that have not heard Ezra, that's worth a trip to see him live and in person.
Yeah, so absolutely. And we've got a bunch of others too, including Evan Dash, who's not as known in like the D2C space, but literally runs like the Dash Home Appliances, which is like $1 billion brand. Wow. Just tremendous. They're in every retailer, and something that's really unique to them is they've started like within the last 10 years or so. And I don't think there's another like kitchenware brand out there that's ever done anything like that, like recently. So like, just some really amazing people that I'm excited for. Right. And like I said, I'm a seller and I get excited about these people and what they're talking about. So like, I sit through most of the sessions as best I can, or, watch them after, but it's just a great event. But yeah, if you visit innovate.show, you can get a ticket, and I'll drop you a coupon if you want to put that somewhere. If you want to,
amazing. Yeah, I'll put it in the show notes as well.
And you can use that coupon and register as well.
Innovate.show. Be there. Can't wait to hang out in New York City. Brandon, how else can people follow you? So are you active on socials? You want to connect with people on LinkedIn or Twitter or anything like that?
Yeah, you can find me on any of the socials. I'm on LinkedIn. I'm on Twitter. I don't really post very much. I'm just that guy, but I am there. So if you want to connect, ask a question or whatever, you can definitely find me there. I wouldn't expect too many postings from me.
Okay. Keep those expectations low.
Yes.
It's quality, not quantity, but
yes.
It's Brandon Fuhrmann. So it's Fuhrmann.
Yes, 2 N's.
As you're searching on the socials to find Brandon. And so with that, Brandon, this has been awesome, man. Thank you for dropping knowledge. Thank you for the time. And look forward to seeing you in New York City soon.
Great. Thanks for having me.
Awesome. And as always, thank you for tuning in. We'd love to hear from you. What would you like to hear more of on the show? If you like this episode, if this was helpful for you, please share this with someone else that would benefit from it. And if you've not left us a review on iTunes, we'd love that as well. And with that, until next time, thank you for listening. This episode of the E-Commerce Evolution Podcast is brought to you by Fuhrmann. Fuhrmann is the AI native commerce platform that optimizes shopping experiences, leading to best-in-class shopper engagement and conversion. Leveraging proprietary data tools and its adaptive commerce graph, Fuhrmann delivers hyper-personalized experiences to both human and agentic shoppers that adapt in real time to behavioral and performance insights. Trusted by industry leaders like Backcountry, Bissell, and Glossier, as well as premier agency partners, Fuhrmann platform blends advanced analytics and optimization tools like heat maps, strategy engines, and conversational data insights to maximize shopper impact and tailor every touch point. Check it out for yourself at Fuhrmann Commerce, Fermat commerce.com.